Pushing upwards out of the forest floor in the glow of the autumn light, we have a mushroom. It shares the forest with the plants and the animals, but it's not a plant and it's not an animal. It's from an entirely separate kingdom of life, the kingdom of fungi. This mushroom is only one part of this fungus. It's the fruiting body grown for reproduction. The rest of this fungus lives hidden out of sight below ground. Beneath every mushroom is a fungal network of hair-like strands called a mycelium. This is the body of this fungus. A mycelium starts its life growing from a tiny spore, growing in all directions looking for food. Then, when the conditions are right, it grows a fruiting body out of the ground. These fruiting bodies come in a wide range of different forms, but their job is all the same, to disperse the spores and grow the next generation. However, only around 10% of fungi produce mushrooms. The kingdom of fungi is wildly diverse, from single-celled yeasts to pathogenic fungi hijacking the nervous systems of animals, to the fungi who form complex symbiotic relationships with plants. We'll explore all this and more in this map of fungi, and like all my maps, this is available as a poster, which you can buy from dosmaps.com. If we zoom into the microscopic realm, we can look closer at a strand of mycelium, which is around 5 to 50 times narrower than a human hair. Now here's a single filament of a mycelium called a hyphae, and here you can see the fungal cells and the cell components within them, the organelles. And these hyphae, they grow from their tips, sometimes branching out to grow in different directions, but they can also fuse when they meet, and this makes the complicated mycelium network that you can kind of see in the background here. Hyphae have got tough cell walls because they contain a structural polymer in these walls called chitin, and this is the same material that can be found in the exoskeletons of crustaceans and insects. And this cell wall surrounds a soft plasma membrane, and this is different to animal cells which don't have a cell wall, they just have the flexible plasma membrane, and this means that animal cells can ingest their food by engulfing it, Pac-Man style. But hyphae can't do this because the tough chitin in their cell wall means that they're not flexible, they can't engulf any of their food. So instead of that, they externally digest their surroundings, doing this by excreting digestive enzymes through their cell wall, which breaks down the surrounding material, ready to be absorbed back through the cell wall to feed the hyphae, kind of like their stomach is on the outside of their bodies. Interestingly, another source of food for some carnivorous fungi are the worm-like microorganisms, nematodes, and these fungi have developed many different techniques to catch these nematode worms, either with glue traps or lassoing them in rings, or by stunning the nematodes with toxins before digesting them. Hyphae come in two main types. Septate hyphae have filaments that are divided into compartments by cross walls called septa, which have got pores in them to let cytoplasm and some cellular components between the cells. Choanocytic hyphae, also known as aseptate hyphae, are fungal filaments that lack the cross walls, where all the cell organelles and nuclei are freely flowing, essentially making the entire mycelium one giant cell. So on a cellular level, it's really interesting that the fact that fungi have got these tough cell walls, that explains why they are the shape they are and why they grow these mycelium networks, because being made of lots of very thin strands that are all networked together essentially maximizes their surface area for trying to digest whatever they're growing through. And a consequence of this is a lot of fungi look pretty much exactly the same. They're all different kinds of varieties of these networks, maybe slightly fatter, slightly thinner. I think this might be why fungi have historically been underappreciated compared to plants and animals. Because when you look at different plants or animals, you can tell that they're different species just by looking at them. Their morphologies are different. You know, that's a squirrel, that's a giraffe. But with fungi, unless you're an expert, they all look kind of the same. But different kinds of fungi specialise in breaking down different materials for food, using a massive range of different chemicals depending on the species. So the diversity of fungi is in their chemistry and metabolism rather than their shape. Historically, people thought fungi were a kind of plant, which kind of makes sense because a lot of fungi grow in the soil, they form these sort of networks which look a bit like roots, and they don't move around, they're not mobile. But now we know fungi are actually an entirely different kingdom of life, separate to plants and animals, and they're actually more closely related to animals than plants. Today, the main way to tell the difference between species of fungus is by sequencing their genetics using molecular barcoding methods. This modern technology has unlocked a whole new way to discover and study fungi and untangle their evolutionary relationships between species. Mycologists have discovered about 150,000 species of fungi, but they estimate there are 2 or 3 million species out in nature waiting to be discovered, with potentially very useful chemical behaviours for new drugs or technologies. We'll look at the fascinating chemistry of fungi soon, but first I need to mention yeast. Some species of fungi only grow as single-celled yeasts, and these reproduce by a kind of cell division called budding or fission. But some fungi can switch between living as a yeast or living as a hyphae, depending on the environment they find themselves in. We also get yeasts living on us, which we'll find out about later. Fungi are found in just about every environment on Earth, on land and in the water, and they've been found in extreme environments like deserts or areas with high concentrations of salt or radiation. Some can even survive the intense radiation of space. Fungi are essential for the decomposition of organic matter, breaking it down and cycling the nutrients back through the environment. The organic acids or enzymes hyphae release breaks down material as they grow, allowing them to grow through just about any material: leaves, soil, wood, rock, even asphalt. Deep in the past, 290 million years ago, a fungus related to the white rot fungus developed special enzymes which gave it the ability to break down the tough lignin in plant matter. Before this, nothing could break down this tough molecule, so plant matter would just be buried and compressed over time, eventually turning into coal. So a fungus basically stopped the Earth's production of coal 290 million years ago. Most life on Earth has some kind of symbiotic relationship with some kind of fungi. These relationships can be mutually beneficial, where both the fungus and the partner benefit from the relationship. For example, leafcutter ants are like fungus farmers, feeding their fungal gardens with leaves while protecting them from pests and molds. In return, the fungus is a food source for their ants' larvae. Another hugely important mutually beneficial relationship exists between plant roots and fungi. This relationship is called mycorrhiza. 90% of all plants rely on mycorrhiza for nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus, which fungi extract from the soil. And in return, the plant supplies the fungus with food like carbohydrates, which the plant produces in photosynthesis. There are 2 main kinds of mycorrhiza. Arbuscular mycorrhiza penetrate the plant's root cells to exchange nutrients, whereas ectomycorrhiza penetrate between the plant cells, but not inside them. Interestingly, the mycelium network of a fungus can connect to multiple different plants through their mycorrhiza, and this is called a mycorrhizal network, and this effectively connects plants to each other through their roots, potentially giving them a route to exchange information with each other. So some studies suggest that plants can give each other warnings if they're being attacked by insects or pathogens, or they can even transfer resources to each other if one is, not doing so well. But I should say this is still an active area of research, and there's still some debate about how much plants use this mechanism to communicate with each other. I should also say that these mycorrhiza aren't always mutually beneficial. Some fungi can switch to a pathogenic mode where they're leeching off the plant, or they can just be commensal and not really do anything. Now let's look at lichens, which are made of a combination of fungi along with algae or cyanobacteria, all living in a symbiotic relationship. Lichens are really important because they're the first organisms to establish themselves in a new environment, like when a glacier retreats or when volcanic rock covers an area. They contribute to soil formation by breaking down rock and adding nutrients to the soil. Fungi have also been found living harmlessly inside plants. These are known as endophytes and can live inside a plant for all or just part of their life cycles. Some endophytes may even help the host plant by enhancing growth or helping tolerate stresses like drought or increase the resistance to insects or pathogens. But of course, many fungi are pathogens themselves. Although plants have got many beneficial relationships with fungi, by far the most common and damaging pathogens that plants face are also fungi. They're far more damaging than viruses, bacteria, or even insects. Pathogenic fungal infections can damage plants by destroying cells, blocking the vascular tissues that carry water, releasing toxins, and growing over leaves, stopping them from photosynthesizing. Rusts, smuts, molds, and mildews are all common names for fungal plant pathogens, which can cause major losses to crop yields worldwide. Hundreds of billions of dollars worth of wheat and barley are lost each year because of Fusarium graminearum. And in the 1950s, an entire species of banana was wiped out by the related species called Fusarium oxysporum, and this is now threatening the modern variety too. And wood, imported from Asia, is thought to be the origin of Dutch elm disease, which has wiped out most of the elm trees in temperate Europe and North America. There are countless other examples of fungal pathogens that prey on plants, but they also infect animals too, sometimes in the most ghoulish ways. These are called entomogenous fungi. The zombie ant fungus, Ophicordyceps unilateralis, infects ants by piercing the exoskeleton with enzymes and spreads fungal cells throughout the body. It then secretes special neurological compounds that hijack the ant's central nervous system, forcing it to climb high into a tree and lock its mandibles onto a leaf with a death grip. This makes a nice stable platform for the fungus to grow a fruiting body to disperse spores in a large area to infect more hosts. This is the kind of crazy biology that inspired the zombies in The Last of Us, and they're not alone. There are many different pathogenic fungi that infect other insects and spiders. But there is a really positive side to this fascinating biochemistry. When a fungus infects an arthropod, it needs to suppress the immune system of its host, so it secretes immunosuppressing chemicals. And fortunately, these chemical compounds also work in humans and have been developed into drugs that make organ transplantation possible. This is just one of a host of drugs that have been developed from fungi and their complex biochemistry. In fact, fungi arguably produce some of the most important drugs ever discovered. They include statins, which are a group of fungal chemicals extracted from a mold, which have been found to interfere with fat production and have been synthesized to treat high cholesterol and cardiovascular diseases. In the wild, fungi fight with each other for resources, so drugs that come from fungi have also been shown to treat fungal infections. They've also been shown to inhibit viruses, have anti-tumor compounds used in cancer treatments. They've also been used in vaccines and are used as a treatment for MS. But arguably the biggest impact of fungi on medicine is their ability to kill bacteria. The first modern antibiotic, penicillin, was first used in 1930 to treat an eye infection in newborn babies. But it only found widespread use at the end of the Second World War when scientists finally figured out how to synthesize it en masse using fermentation. This was the beginning of the antibiotic revolution, and since then hundreds of millions of lives have been saved because of antibiotics derived from fungi. Now, there's a very good reason why fungi produce antibacterial compounds. They often live side by side and compete for food and space, so fungi produce antibiotic compounds as a natural defense mechanism to kill bacteria or inhibit their growth. And because fungi digest their food externally, excreting digestive enzymes outside their body to break down their food, they then need to protect that food from other organisms while they absorb it. This is amazing footage showing bacteria swimming in the liquid surrounding hyphae. These have been called fungal highways and are probably essential for healthy soil. In fact, fungi release many other compounds for attack and defense, feeding, communication, and other functions we don't yet understand. Because of their amazing biochemistry, we've found many other uses for fungi. They're used in bioremediation by breaking down insecticides, herbicides, and other pollutants like crude oil, polyurethane plastics, even explosive TNT. They may even be useful for bioremediation of radioactively polluted sites, as they've got the ability to absorb heavy metals, including radioactive material. They've also been used in agriculture for biological control of pests like locusts, which threaten food harvests. And they're used extensively to produce industrial chemicals like acids, detergents, and ethanol, amongst others. 60% of enzymes used in industry are generated by fungi, and all of the citric acid used in soft drinks is made by fungi. And the strong mycelium can be used to build materials and textiles to replace plastics and leathers. Because of their ability to concentrate nutrients from within the soil, fungi are an excellent source of food for us and many other animals. Today, the global market for edible fungi is worth about £32 billion, with about 350 species of fungi collected or cultivated for food. Foraging for mushrooms is a fun activity, but there is a risk of poisoning. Although surprisingly few fungi are truly toxic. Only 120 out of 22,000 mushroom-producing species could kill you. The problem is, several of these deadly varieties look very similar to edible mushrooms, making it easy to make a fatal mistake. And some fungal poisons are heat stable too, so the mushroom stays poisonous even after you cook it. The purpose of these toxic chemical compounds is still being figured out, but they're likely to be a deterrent and defense against the mushroom being eaten before it's completed the job of producing spores. Some of the defensive chemicals that fungi produce have a psychotropic effect, notably psilocybin in magic mushrooms, and also LSD was first derived from the ergot fungus. In all, around 150 mushroom-producing species have got hallucinogenic properties, and despite these species also being toxic, human consumption of these fungi goes back at least 3,000 years, and have formed the basis for a number of ancient cultural rituals. In the clinical setting, psychotropics are being studied for their potential in treating chronic depression and PTSD. These studies appear to show that psilocybin causes a temporary increase in communication between different parts of the brain. But fungi provide us with more than just mushrooms for food. Humans have been using yeast to preserve or ferment food and drinks for over 10,000 years. Fermentation is a metabolic pathway yeast uses in oxygen-limited conditions to break down sugars and generate energy, producing byproducts like ethanol and carbon dioxide, as well as many other compounds like phenols and esters, which produce the delicious flavours and smells. Fermentation is used in baking bread, brewing beer, wine, and many other alcoholic drinks, and can also be used in a number of other fermented foods like tofu, soy sauce, chocolate, coffee, and some types of yogurt and cheese, amongst many others. But while we're feeding on fungi, there are fungi feeding on us. Humans host a staggering variety of fungi, mostly in a commensal relationship where they do neither harm nor good to us. For instance, the basidiomycete yeast, Malassezia, is a natural inhabitant of human skin, where it feeds off the oils and sebum in our sebaceous glands and tends to thrive in teenagers when puberty increases the production of these oils. While usually harmless, Malassezia is associated with several skin conditions, including dandruff amongst others. And other dermophytes can cause other conditions like athlete's foot. However, while we can coexist with these fungi without giving them a second thought, under the right conditions they can quickly become pathogens, causing our bodies harm. On our body we also have species of Candida, which normally don't cause us any harm, but they're also opportunistic pathogens affecting mucous membranes and causing thrush. Usually fungal infections are only really a nuisance to humans who are otherwise healthy, but they can cause serious complications if they're already ill. When it comes to reproduction, fungi are again quite unusual because many of them can reproduce both sexually and asexually. This means they can either find a partner to mix genes with to make new offspring, or they can just clone themselves, although plants can do this as well. The advantage of cloning is that it's very quick, just simple cell division, but sexual reproduction improves diversity within a population, which is an advantage over asexual reproduction to explore more ecological niches. Interestingly, while many fungi have got two sexes, like us humans, some fungi can have hundreds to thousands of different sexes. They all look the same, but the fungi are able to chemically detect the sex of a neighbour and if they're compatible or not. And scientists have built a massive spreadsheet to keep track of who can get it on with who. All fungi disperse themselves by producing microscopic spores, but these spores vary massively in shape, size and colour. The size, shape and features of spores are built to take advantage of many different methods of dispersal. Primitive fungi have whip-like tails called flagella to disperse through watery environments. Others disperse in the air from the gills on the undersides of mushrooms. Others are ejected at great speeds from the fruiting bodies, and others are specifically adapted to be picked up or eaten by insects, birds or mammals, like truffles whose fruiting bodies grow below ground, but communicate with the above world by releasing a special aroma that attracts mammals. Something we enjoy as well. The aroma is the sex pheromones of male pigs. Delightful. Probably the least known effect of fungi in the environment is their role in the formation of clouds and rains, as fungal spores can trigger the formation of water droplets, causing rains which land on the tree canopy or forest floor, and this helps maintain the forest microclimate. Finally, evolution. This is our current picture of the fungal tree of life, which contains 8 main branches. We think the earliest fungi evolved around 1 billion years ago and were simple single-celled organisms that lived in the sea. As mentioned before, one of the key signatures of a fungus is containing chitin in their cell walls. This can be difficult to detect, but detailed studies have shown that downy mildews and water molds and slime molds don't have chitin and so aren't fungi. But the single-celled Cryptomycota and Microsporidia do, making them the fungi that exist today that most resemble the earliest forms of fungi. They're also exclusively parasites. These, along with Blastocladiomycota and Chytridiomycota, reproduce using a mobile spore with a whip-like tail called a flagellum, which allows them to move through water just like a human sperm cell. This mobile spore was lost when fungi moved onto the land around 700 million years ago, and then evolved the other ways of dispersing spores. Zoopagomycota are almost exclusively pathogens or parasites, which infect or feed off plants or animals, or they live within plants or animals without harming them. Mucoromycota are known for forming relationships with plants that are mutually beneficial to the plant and fungi. This group contains the subphylum Glomeromycota, which forms the mycorrhizal relationships with about 80% of land plants, including most crops. They also harbour a large diversity of bacteria that live inside the fungal cells. And finally, the Ascomycota and Basidiomycota, which together forms the subkingdom Dicaria. Ascomycetes are commonly known as the sac fungi and include morels, truffles, brewers and baker's yeasts, as well as the majority of fungal symbionts in lichens. Whereas Basidiomycetes are perhaps the most familiar to us as they contain the fungi who grow into the majority of mushrooms. So that's an overall view of the world of fungi visualised in this map. I find visuals really help me learn new information, which is why Brilliant is a really helpful tool to learn STEM subjects. And it's really similar to my channel in that it uses art and graphic design to help you get your head around complex subjects. But they have the benefit of being interactive through their app or website. They've got loads of amazing tools and visualization. So if you want to learn how AI works, you can see how visual and language models are built. Want to learn mathematics? There are courses which visualize equations and algebra. Want to learn programming? There's loads of interactive courses for that. And they've got many other subjects too. So this is the link to find your favourite subject, brilliant.org/DOS. And this link tells Brilliant that you came from here, which also helps me out too. Also, if you use my link, you can get a 20% discount off the premium subscription, which gives you unlimited daily access to everything on Brilliant. I highly recommend giving it a try. Links are in the description below. And finally, if you want to get your hands on the map of fungi, this is the best place to go, dosmaps.com. That directs you to which store is best to buy it from, depending on your region. Thanks for watching, and check out my channel for loads more maps of different areas of human knowledge.